Welcome to the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission's quarterly board meeting. My name is Keith Gertz. I am the Regional Director for DEC's Region 4, and I also serve as the board chair. As I always do at the beginning of every meeting, I like to go around and introduce the Executive Director and the rest of the board members. So to my left is Chris Hauber, the Executive Director of the Commission. Continuing around the table, Mike McLaughlin, representing Albany County. Next is Stephen Rice, Citizen Rep. Representing the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historical Preservation is Janet Zuckerman. Citizen Rep Nancy Pearson is sitting next to her. As we go around the table, Supervisor for Town of Gilliland, Peter Barber, and representing the Town of Colony, Mike Tangler. So good morning, everybody. The first order of business is to consider the minutes of the last board meeting on June 20th. Can I have a motion to consider the minutes? Second? Nancy? All in favor? Aye. Great. So if anyone from the public would like to make a few comments, Richard?
It's like I always wants to make a comment. First of all, pass that down. I mentioned the last time that we're starting a 20-mile challenge, and so it's live now. I worked the Colony Harvest Fest on the weekend, and we had a Boy Scout group who said, wow, that looks like a good project. So we're hoping this becomes kind of gradually something that people want to do. This would make you see every trail in the Pine Bush. And the friends are also doing meetups, and we're doing them a different trail once a month. Hopefully, maybe every 2 weeks at some point, but I'm not sure about that. At least once a month, so we can work through that. One other thing I wanted to mention, we could use 1 to 3 board members, and I want to ask anybody if you could come up with 1 to 2 names that might be suitable for a board, who have time, who might have some kind of ecological background, or who just think they are interested and care about the Pine Bush. And we want to make sure that we're sustainable, just like we want to make sure that the Pine Bush stays sustainable. So we want to make sure that we have a couple people that can pick up when one of us falls down. And this happens now and then to volunteers, especially as we age. So think about that. Maybe make a note. Any people in the office, any people you know, any people who's retiring, that might be a good idea. But we really love 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, so we broaden our demographic.
Yeah, Richard, I wouldn't even say, you probably would welcome people, they don't necessarily need a science background,
No,
just an appreciation of it.
I didn't have a science background. I'm a library director, right? So, but once I got here, I started reading books and going to all the science lectures. And you learn stuff, and it's really fun, and it's interesting, and anyway, what's better than learning, right?
Right.
Thanks,
Sharing,
Richard.
I guess.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. I just wanted to mention that over the summer, I got the opportunity to observe a prescribed fire by Tyler and his crew. It was a great experience. I went out there with Chris. Also accompanying me was the Deputy Commissioner of Natural Resources, Judy Derbicki, and our Emergency Management Director, Matt Franklin. And it was a really outstanding experience. It was good to see those folks in action. They clearly know what they're doing. And it was just a great opportunity to observe that. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
You can observe Keith in the update, and Judy and Matt in their Nomex. I'd like to see if I'm good at this. Try to look away when I do that. It makes you dizzy. There we go. There's the crew. We had a good day too.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So, anybody, any other members of the board have anything they wish to bring up? Okay, I'll kick it over to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to say thank you, Janet, for joining us. Janet Zuckerman is with, like Keith mentioned, she's with State Parks. She works in the Environmental Bureau. She's an environmental analyst. She used to work closely with the person to her left, I believe. Janet has now been officially designated as a backup for Elaine, for the commissioner, for Commissioner Kulisevich with Parks. So, welcome aboard. I think you all know I sent a message to everyone. We have our new website, finally. It took a while, like 2.5 years. But you know, you don't want to do anything, you want to make sure it's perfect, right? So there's still a few glitches, but I wanted to thank everybody who was on the team. Wendy spearheaded it, Aaron was on it, Grace, and Blake. Did I get everybody? Yes. So finally it's been launched. It looks really nice. It was state of the art when we started 2 years ago. It still kind of is, so hopefully it'll stick around for a while. And again, thanks to Wendy and the other staff that helped provide the information. This is our new annual report. Our annual report, this is 18-19, so fiscal year that ended this March. So we have copies of this I can distribute, pass around. We have lots of handouts today, I guess. Also, Neil put at your place a copy of an article from Natural History. This is the actual magazine, Natural History magazine. This month, September's issue is focused on fire. And Neil and Steve were invited by Dr. Stephen Pine, who's one of the foremost researchers in fire science, to write an article for it, specifically on the pine bush. So that is in there. That's pretty cool. Following up on fire, Keith mentioned he and Judy and Matt were able to come out on a burn. We've had quite a successful year. We have burned, I think the most we've burned over a season is around 260 or 270 acres, which is a really good year. Currently we're at 429 acres, which is really good. So everything is, it's like when the stars all align, the weather works, it's not too wet, it's not too dry, it's not too windy, there's enough wind, everything kind of comes together. And of course all the staff working on it, especially Tyler as the fire manager, making sure everything's prepped and ready to go. So it's been a good year so far, and we still have more burning to do. Tying in again with more fire. Smokey Bear Day is Columbus Day this year. We do this every year. It's one of the programs that we do. And this year, we're recognizing Smokey for his 75th birthday. So we'll have a birthday theme with cupcakes probably, and balloons.
He looks great for his age.
He does look good. There's no gray in that muzzle. And of course Smokey will be here, and it's usually a really big draw. If we have good weather, we'll easily pull in 500 people. If it's lousy weather, we'll still get 200. So I thank the education staff for, as always, pulling this one off. In a report, let's see how good I am with our So this piece of property, so here's the whole, these are all the protected lands of the preserve. We're here. These roughly 21 acres, if you remember back at the June 14th meeting, we passed a resolution to pursue this property to acquire it at up to fair market value. We closed on this property Thursday. So this is the first property that the commission has ever acquired on its own. So it's kind of a milestone. So there it is up close. So it's it's one tax parcel, but it's separated by this power line right of way. And keep an eye on this here in this field, because Neil's going to talk about this field. And looking a little further down here, further into the agenda, I'm going to talk about some property here for some potential acquisition. So that's good. We acquired that property at exactly fair market value, which was lower than the individual's asking price. Fair market value came in at $50,000 with the appraisal. The asking price was dropped to $75,000 from $95,000. So $50,000 was the acquisition price, which is great. OPEB. So we've talked a lot about other post-employment benefits back in the 2 June meetings. There was a resolution that we passed that we're going to revisit here in a minute to set up the account. So the account has been set up. That's been established. It's a money market as the board directed. We transferred $500,000 from the reserves into this new account, so it's ready to go. So it's one of the four, now we have 4 investment accounts, and we'll talk about that further into the agenda. And let's see, finally, also following up on OPEB, the board directed us as staff, basically Lisa and me, to look into other opportunities. Basically, if we're eliminating this benefit going forward for any new hires, is there something out there that could be provided to new hires that would be similar? The long and short of it is, we were going to report in detail at the December meeting, but I wanted to kind of give you an update. So we spoke with 3 insurance companies, or 3 insurance carriers, if you want to look at it that way. Nikon, which is the New York Council for Nonprofits. They deal with a lot of nonprofits across the state. Gallagher, which is an insurance carrier that was recommended by John Brust because his company and other for-profit businesses use them. And then we went to Boucher and Clark. That's who we have used for over 10 years for our dental, our short and long-term disability, as well as our flexible spending account. So I guess the short version is they can't really provide us an estimate of what it would look like or cost because we have nobody in it. We don't have anybody at this point to look at their actual, from an actuarial standpoint, their age, gender, all of that. And I guess the more complicating thing is that we would have to have a contract with the insurance, the health insurance on our own outside of NISHIP. So NISHIP is who we go through now, right? So you have the Empire Plan and you have HMOs through NISHIP, which all state employees, public employees are a part of. And NISHIP carries these health insurance carriers. We would have to go outside of NISHIP, so say with CDPHP, contract with them, set up a contract, and have an individual participating in that insurance program for them to provide the information, which would probably be an HRA, health reimbursement account. So with that said, Lisa and I met, I know this is long, but hopefully it's helpful. We met with Boucher and Clark last week in person, and they're going to look into it a little more for us, see if they can provide some more detail. So we'll follow up with the audit committee in December and back to the board again. So I just wanted to give you an update on where that is. So it may be difficult to come up with what this would look like without somebody, but all 3 of them said if you have a person at that point, then it would be easier. But we'll go back in December, we'll give you some more information. Does anybody have any questions on that? Lisa, did I summarize that? Yeah. Okay. And since my report was kind of long, I'll leave it at that. Please make sure that you look at the update, all the things that have been going on here with the staff and on the ground and here at the Discovery Center and otherwise. Lots of stuff going on. And that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Next, we have Neil Gifford with the technical report.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks, Chris.
You want to do it?
Yeah, I can just do it from here.
Yeah, you'd probably be safer. Here it is.
I can't comment on that.
No. Yeah. Here.
We're a headboard. The technical committee met in August. It was the only meeting I believe that we had this past quarter, so rather than give you a paper form updated report, since there was no actual official application that we received and commented on, I wanted to simply take a minute to update you on 3 projects in particular. One is a new project that Chris mentioned is in full protection area 72B. Those parcels that he pointed to that the commission just acquired are immediately to the north, and some other properties, don't touch it, Neil. Other preserved properties immediately adjacent. So it's these 2 parcels here in 72B, recommended for full protection. Eden Renewables has approached the town of Colony where the concept at this point for a very large community solar project. But in particular, what is interesting and unique about Eden, they're from Europe originally. They do community solar projects for pollinators. So they're proposing this project, and let's see if I can. They're proposing with this project to utilize locally derived native plants, working with us to basically plant the whole thing. Typically what they do, they space things real wide, they fence it, they manage their sites by grazing sheep typically, so they don't use chain link fence, they use field fencing and allow contractors to come in and graze sheep, which may not work for this site. But I zoomed in here on this just so you can see kind of this, at scale. They want to basically fill that field with solar panels. And it's a really cool tracking system, so not only does it change the angle over the course of the year, but it also changes their aspect as the sun courses across the sky each day. And again, it's a community solar project. They came in and presented to the technical committee in August, and the town requested that we submit a brief letter of comment based on that presentation. And at this point, all we said to the town and copied the applicant was to say that this is a area this project is proposed, an area that's recommended for full protection. However, in the absence of the commission's ability to protect this site, this particular proposal is not necessarily completely incompatible with the commission's goals for creating and managing a viable preserve. In particular, they're interested up front in surrounding it with a screen of pitch pine, planting it with lupin and native grasses. So we talked about native species issues. The Nature Conservancy does have a safe harbor, so that is something that might facilitate having lupin and carnival butterflies out there. So there's the potential for this to be a relatively pretty compatible project. And it's ironic because the climate crisis is exacerbating the species extinction and biodiversity crisis. And here's a project in the pine bush that would kind of bring those two issues together and try and advance both dealing with climate change, renewable energy, and endangered species recovery at the same time. So it's got potential. It's very preliminary at this point, and they're working with the town of Colony on their proposal. The second project I wanted to briefly mention is the Albany landfill habitat restoration project. You can see the railroad at the north, the existing landfill cell that they expanded and are working on now. Can't touch the screen. In particular, they're going to be, next spring, they plan on beginning the restoration process of the landfill itself. So there are two stockpiles of sand, those tan circles along Rapp Road by the old Masters Horse Barn. And this fall, they're going to be constructing this haul road to facilitate getting that sand from those stockpiles up to the landfill. And they've got all their permits from DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers to build this haul road, get the sand up there. And that's actually logistically and financially much more feasible for them because they don't have to put the sand on a road truck, transport it to the landfill, put it in an off-road truck, and then get it up to the landfill. And lastly, just a brief update on the Cross Gates residential development proposal. And the applicant in the town, the applications for a residential development of apartments along the Rapp Road in the town of Guilderland, and that project is continuing to move forward. Any questions on any of those three? Steve?
I think you were probably trying to address this, but it wasn't clear in my mind. With the solar panel, imagine they plant lupin, it's colonized by an endangered species. Does that then impact what they can and can't do in there? Is that a restriction?
Yes, so great question. It would, and we talked to them about that, unless they were able to enroll in the Nature Conservancy's Safe Harbor program. So we worked for about 7 years to help the Nature Conservancy secure a Safe Harbor permit. So a Safe Harbor is long story short, is a permit that the Fish and Wildlife Service and DEC provided to the Nature Conservancy. And they then the Conservancy themselves can incorporate a willing landowner under that umbrella permit to be able to do something for endangered species. And at the end of some term, it's almost like a lease. At the end of the term of that lease, if you will, they can go back to baseline. So initially, we would have to establish what baseline for occupied habitat is out there, say 73 acres, maybe there's 5. At the end of the Safe Harbor, after I think it's a 30-year term, they could, if they wanted to, go back down to that 5-acre baseline that they had. So basically, it ensures no net loss of endangered species habitat, but it's a great program for facilitating recovery, and especially in a site like that, where we're trying to bridge the gap between two permanently protected properties. it's a good option, and the applicant, we're talking to the applicant and the Nature Conservancy about the potential for using that program for that site.
And there's never been a safe harbor in New York, has there?
No. So TNC got the
So it would
first
be-
permit,
It'd be interesting.
and this would be the first property that TNC might include in it. And TNC holds that permit, so it's really up to the Conservancy and the applicant, but we're talking to everybody to try and see if that's a viable option. And I think that the application process for that project is probably going to be lengthy because it's big, 73 acres. So hopefully plenty of opportunity to, if the project moves forward, to bridge all those gaps and ensure that the project is a nice balance. Sorry.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Dale.
you.
Next, we have Lisa Anthony with the financial report.
Good morning.
So you can do this.
We have 3 reports. We'll do financial statement of financial activities first. This represents 4 months of our fiscal year through July 31st. So on the revenue side, dues and contributions are slightly higher than budget, and this is due to trust gov donations, which come in quarterly. Government grant and contracts income is 86% of budget. This is directly related to our expenses, as you'll see are lower too. We just have less spending at the beginning of the year typically. Mitigation fees are $20,000 higher than budget, and this is based on tonnage from the landfill. This comes from April through June. Lease revenue is on budget for the year, and other revenue is on budget for the year. So total revenue came in at 90% of budget through the month of July, and this is due mainly to lower grant revenue. Moving on to expenses, personnel and fringe are $110,000 under budget. This will catch up in November when we make our New York State retirement payment. Travel and training are 61% of budget, and this is due to the timing of conferences throughout most departments that are occurring in the fall and winter. Contractual is $50,000 under budget as of July 31st, and this is partially due to the website and science contracts and tree removal contracts that have not been paid yet. Communication is at 65% of budget, and this is due to the timing of printing projects, advertising for the night at the Discovery Center, and production and fabrication for banners. Occupancy is 48% below budget, and most of this is in flooring for the DC office and repairs that have not occurred yet. Supplies and equipment are $20,000 under budget, and this is due to computer and software purchases that have not been made, a printer, and educational supplies. And other expenses are 97% of budget, and this is basically due to a savings on insurance and gift shop purchases that have not been made. Both overall, our revenue and expenses came in under budget, giving us an operating income of $146,000. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Moving on to the statement of net assets. Cash and cash equivalents, they increased slightly, and this is due to 2 mitigation payments that were received in July. Grants receivable increased, and this is due to money owed from DEC, and this has been paid. Accounts receivable decreased. This was due to the payment of mitigation funds that was owed by the landfill. Inventory remained the same. Prepaid expenses are 0, and this is due to the timing of year-end expenditures, and this will happen every April through March. Investments increased $238,000 due to a performance and all positive performance in all 3 funds. Capital assets decreased due to depreciation, and deferred outflows remained the same. This is our GASB 68 and 71, which you'll see a change in November for that. Liabilities, accounts payable and accrued expenses decreased. This is due to accrued expenses being paid. Deferred revenue, New York State pension liability, and OPEB liability all remain the same. You'll see a change in the OPEB liability. We will book that in November. I'm working with the actuary of the firm right now to get an estimate. So total liabilities decreased $11,000. Net assets, capital assets decreased due to depreciation. Reserved assets remain the same. And unreserved assets increased $384,000, giving us a $296,000 increase in our total net assets. Any questions on that? Okay. On to investments, which is all positive. We had a positive performance in all 3 funds, 2.64% in our reserve fund, Discovery Center endowment 3.45, and endowment 3.83. giving us an increase in investments through July of $238,000. Any questions at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So, now I guess we'll move into the action items. Start off with action item A, I guess.
Let me go through this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a refined version of so we had a resolution at the June 14th meeting. When we passed the resolution, it was a two-part resolution that was picked up in the minutes, but it wasn't exactly clear in the minutes, so that this is a refined version of what was adopted by the board for that account that we set up specifically for OPEB. So what's changed is we said annual transfers of 3.5% from the endowment account. It has to be from the average of the last 3 fiscal year ending balances, which is typical for if you ever take money out of an endowment for operating or other, and that ties back into the investment policy statement, which we'll get to in a minute. And then this was picked up in the minutes, but wasn't really part of the resolution. We really need a standalone one-page resolution for this. This is for this year, that we would transfer 4% of the average of the 3 fiscal years from the endowment, and it would be done in the last quarter. We said in the last quarter, but that didn't get picked up in the minutes to fund the OPEB liability. Does that make sense? Okay.
Chris, you said 3.5%, but you really mean this range, 3 to 5%.
325,
Okay.
right. I'm sorry, did I say 3.5?
That's what I heard, but
No,
maybe-
that's not what I meant.
Okay, just-
Between 3 to 5%.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yep, and that would be just, that determination could be anywhere from 3 to 5, and the board will make that determination every year. You know, we'll provide the information obviously prior, so you can see what the accounts are looking like, and make a decision on what it should be on an annual basis.
Is there any questions about any of that? Okay, so we have a motion to accept this revised language.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Thank you.
Great.
So this ties in, because we added this now, this fourth account, the OPEB account, it's another investment account. So we had to update the investment policy statement. So we provided this to the audit committee last week, and they're recommending the changes to this. The IPS, I'll scroll down, I'll just show you the changes. They're highlighted here. So it mentions there are now 4 pools, 4 investment pools, with the new one with OPEB. And this also was refined, the Discovery Center Endowment. Discovery Center Endowment, a portion of it is restricted based on donor intent. So when donors, specific donors donated to the Discovery Center Endowment, they said it can be only used for this purpose. So that's, and that's actually on the balance sheet that Lisa goes through, and it's how much, $36,000?
$36,484. That'll be your restricted assets on the balance sheet.
So that was never identified within the investment policy statement, so that was recommended by the committee as well. So those are the changes on page 2, and then on page, sorry, makes us dizzy here. Maybe this isn't a good idea.
Just take Dramamine before.
I know, dizzy, right? We changed here, because the resolution that the commission passed to fund OPEB, in the investment policy statement, it only allowed 4%. The board resolved to have it be between 3 and 5%. So that's what this is reflecting. So those are the changes to the investment policy statement. Does that summarize our conversation from the
Yes,
committee?
yes, it does.
All right.
Anybody have any questions about that?
Okay.
Okay. So can I have a motion to update the investment policy as indicated? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. As a public authority, under the Public Authorities Law, we are required to have a real property acquisition policy. We have a disposal policy for equipment, but we've never had a real property acquisition policy because we couldn't acquire real property. So now we can acquire real property, so we need a policy. So I worked with our attorney to put this together. So he drafted and put together this real property acquisition policy, and it's very similar to other policies if you were to look at other authorities, particularly like land banks. It's very reflective, language is very similar, ties right back into the Public Authorities Law. For us, very specifically, of course, it ties into the management plan and the section of our law that allows us to acquire property now, the whole title, and it references the management plan. I don't know if people have questions on it, go through it more.
No questions? Okay, can I have a motion to consider this the new real property acquisition policy? Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks.
So today's meeting focus is real property and fire, I guess. Talking more about real property, 7.3 acres. This is a parcel that the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy acquired through donation. So we just closed on the first acquisition of the commission. This was the first donation ever to the Pine Bush Preserve. Mohawk Hudson received this donation, then donated to the state, to DEC. DEC then dedicated it to preserve, and our law requires that any dedication be reviewed by the commission and accepted. So this is the acceptance of that. 7.3 acres, and I can show you where it is. Here's Albany Street, we're right down here. And it's adjacent to this property there that's owned by TNC, the Nature Conservancy. So there's another addition. Any questions? No.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept DEC's dedication of this property? Nancy, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Thank you. I mentioned at the beginning when I was showing you the property that we closed on to the north to keep your eye on the one to the south, and it's south of that field that Neil was pointing out. This gives the specifics of it, but I'm going to show you another map that gives you a better, this is what it looks like up close. So there's two properties here. A is adjacent to this property that we own. The one that we own is occupied with butterflies. We monitored it this year. Dylan was out there. She sent me pictures. She said, yes, they're here. Given the fact that the habitat in the back of this property has both lupin and nectar, there's almost no doubt that there's butterflies on it. So this is one parcel. And then this property, B, is part of this larger tax parcel here with this building. This is the Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary property, and they're selling it. It's on the market currently. But they would be willing to subdivide and sell us this parcel B, which is about 1.2 acres. And so both A, the standalone parcel, is recommended for full protection in our management plan, and B is the portion of that other larger parcel that's also recommended for full protection. Let's see if I can, and I'll show you, I'll give you a map here. That gives you a little better context. So the property that we just closed on is up here. Here's that field that Neil was talking about, and here's those two parcels. That's how they fit in. So this resolution, if I can do this, is asking for, is requesting the commission to give me the ability to work with our council to pursue the acquisition of it, just like we did for the other parcel, up to and not to exceed fair market value, appraised value. And we would use the reserve account to fund that. I think that's it. That's it for a summary. Nancy?
What's about fair market value now, you know?
What's about fair market value now? I would say roughly $85,000.
For both of them?
Two, yep. So the bigger one, the 3.5 acres, I worked with the Nature Conservancy over 15 years ago. We appraised it. It appraised around 60. And we approached, we brought it back to the owner, and they wouldn't sell it for anything well under 100,000. So the two are probably close to 85,000, my guess.
You mentioned that I think it says something along the lines that you looking to see if there might be interest in subdividing the property. Is the entire parcel of that seminary for sale or only that part?
So this piece, see if I can draw around it. So this going like here, around to this, not that parcel. That whole parcel is now for sale in the market for like 2.2 million, but they're willing to carve out that B, and they would do the subdivision. So the negotiations I've had with the realtor and the owners would be, they would be responsible for doing the subdivision. We would support it. We would do the survey. I would say in the past they weren't very positive towards pine bush land protection, and I would say that's completely different now. They approached us because they're moving. Their headquarters are now in Tennessee, and the fact that they said that they would be willing to do the subdivision to carve out that piece for us.
That was unsolicited, or?
The carve-out piece?
Yeah.
No. They approached us on A, and they said, would you be interested in anything more than that? And I said, well, based on our map and the protection, the protection plan and the division map and the protection plan of the management plan identifies that, and they were willing to go forward with that. You can see it goes right to the end, so their parking lot's here, and they mow the grass to here. This is all forested. That we can acquire it, thin it, and open it. It's really conducive for butterfly restoration. It's probably one of the most important. A is probably one of the most important pieces that are out there right now. At what I would expect a reasonable price.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Questions? Okay, can I get a motion to pursue the acquisition of these properties?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. Action item F. This is the re-election of the three officers besides the chair. The chair is unfortunately not able to be re-elected. It's appointed for life. Like a. So this resolution reappoints the three additional officers: vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And I think all three are happy to recognize the fact that the bylaws allow them to delegate any and all of their duties to staff. Most of them, except for signing things, right, Mr. Secretary? Does anybody have questions? No.
Okay, so can I have a motion to consider the election of the board officers?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Did Nancy say so?
Yep.
Yep, okay. All in favor?
Okay, last one. Again, public authorities law requires multi-year contracts be approved by the board, and that is also picked up and identified in our purchasing and procurement guidelines. The first one, this is a two-part resolution. The first one is Italian Global Services. They're our cleaning company. We had a one-year contract. They've done a good job, so we're extending that for 1 year. Because we're extending that, that turns into a multi-year contract. Price is roughly the same. It's about $14,500, I think, $14,500. This was out for competitive bid in the first place. Second one is something is a new thing. It's called a mini bid, where New York State has a master contract with vendors, and of those vendors, waste disposal is one of them, and there are two that are on there. So there's county waste and I can't remember the other one. Thank you. The two big haulers. So they bid. So they do a mini bid. We tell them what we want, how many cubic feet needs to be removed, both waste and recycling. They bid on it. So they bid, and our monthly bill will now drop from like $140 to $84 a month, which is great. This is multi-year. Again, so this goes through, which start in November, goes through the end of October 2022. And the details are, if you're so inclined to see the cleaning contract. But those are the amendments. Questions?
So can I have a motion to consider the multi-year vendor contracts? Thanks, Steve. Second? Jen? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Does it for the action items?
Aaron, I don't know what to do.
Oh, I'll get it.
Got it. There it is.
Yeah.
I'll stop with the mouse. I'll let you take over.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have some highlights from the Education Department to share with you. Get the pen. I'll use the pen. So recently, within the past year, we've been doing some teacher training. So we've been working with the Greater Capital Region Teacher Center, which is an organization that coordinates training opportunities for teachers and provides credit for professional development and stipends for professional development. So we've been partnering with them, and we've offered 3 trainings so far. Our 4th one is coming up this fall. This is a picture of a training that we did over the summer that Jackie coordinated with the Teacher Center. This is teachers getting trained in data collection in the field. So this is part of our Habitat Watch program, which we do out over at near the Rack Road landfill. And they participated in 4 different stations doing data collection. And these are the teachers that participated. They're from schools throughout the Capital District, from Germantown to Bethlehem and beyond. And they all got a chance to try out the different equipment that we have. And then the idea is that they'll be able to implement some of these data collection strategies back at their schools. So we had both middle school and high school teachers join us for that. And we also share our data with them. So the Habitat Watch program has been going on for many years. I think I've reported on that in the past. This is just one quick example of some of the data that we've collected on macroinvertebrates. There's a pond at the site, and so we do some sampling of what's living in the pond. And then Grace was able to take that data and put it in a bar graph. And so this is just one idea of what teachers can do with the data and help to teach students how to look at data. So we share that with them as well. So the training that's coming up next month that Dylan is working with us on is helping teachers to utilize wildlife cameras on their school grounds. And the Teacher Center actually got a grant, and they purchased a whole bunch of wildlife cameras. Dylan was able to advise them on what cameras to purchase, and now they can loan those out to schools. So I know Farnsworth has a camera, lots of other schools have been able to participate in this program. So that is one highlight of things we've been working on. This is something else that we've been working on. You may have heard about it if you came to Lupin Fest, or if you've been out on the trails and looked at the kiosks. It's especially right out here, is an app that we've been able to work on. There's an app called Agents of Discovery. It already exists, and they work with different parks and historic sites. And so we have partnered with them, and we have an app for the Blue Trail right out here in Carnarvon. And it's an example of augmented reality. So you go out, you use your, whether you have a tablet or a phone, and you're able to actually, as you walk along the trail, different challenges pop up, and they ask you questions, and you answer the questions, and you get points. So it's actually, maybe you've seen other augmented reality applications where you can do historical tours, where you're actually using your camera, you're looking at a site, and things pop up as if there was a sign there to say, oh, you're looking at this. So in these places, Grace has actually made some challenges, and you'll be walking through a burned area, and you'll get a pop-up on your phone that says, look around you, you will see burned trees. And sure enough, there are burned trees around you. So it's pretty amazing. And so we're using this as another way to engage and teach people about the pine bush. So you have to get outside, you have to walk the trail to do it, but it also incorporates technology as a bridge to help people learn more about the preserve. We have a new story walk up that Amanda, one of our seasonal educators, created. So our story walk is basically a book that's posted on a trail. It was first developed by a librarian in Vermont, and it's been trademarked, and now people can create story walks all around the country. So we do this where we take a book, we disassemble it, laminate it, and post it along the trail. It's another way to get people out into the preserve, but doing something in addition to hiking. So it's to kind of enhance their experience. So this is a book about a turtle that didn't realize it could do all these amazing things. And one of the extensions that we're hoping for this is something that Grace and Amanda Doucette are working on, is engaging teens in nature journaling out on the trails and turning that into a story walk as well. So Farnsworth Middle School, they're already doing nature journaling, and so this is a page from a student, an 8th grade student at Farnsworth. And we're working with one of their teachers to offer this as a public program. So reach beyond Guilderland into the other communities, invite teens to come, do some journaling, drawing, writing, reflecting on the pine bush. And then we can, the goal is to be able to post their pages along the trail so that other people can learn and see what they're doing as well. So that is coming soon. We actually have a journaling workshop for teens this Saturday. So if you know a teen who might be interested, send them our way. We'd love to have them. One other project that we've been working on is a historic road project where a couple of individuals approached us last year with an interest in historic roads and encouraging us to do more interpretation of historic roads in the preserve. So we've been working with those people as well as Don Rittner to really get a good sense of where these historic roads exist. So it's a lot of looking at these old maps that don't have a scale, hand-drawn, many of them. So it's a little bit tricky to figure out on the ground where exactly they are, but sure enough, if you go out there, you can find remnants of these trails that were used, some as far back as the 1600s. So the King's Road, most people are familiar with, that connected present-day Albany and Schenectady. That's what's mapped here, is this red line. But there are other roads that existed as well. This was the old Schoharie Road, also known as the Palatine Road. There's the old Carner Road. So there's several roads that you can still find remnants of in the preserve today. So our goal is to find out where they are, to get a better sense of where they exist in relationship to our trails and other features. Maybe someday actually get this in a digital format where we can overlay it onto a preserve map in GIS and be better able to share the history of those roads with people who come to visit. And here's a closing picture. This is standing up on a ridge. If you've been on Kings Road and you start out at the Truax Trail Barrens, there's a ridge that you're kind of looking at. This would be standing up on that ridge, looking out towards, this is Old State Road, over here, and then this was the old Kings Highway out here. So, so this kind of helps us to remember what these roads look like. It wasn't all that long ago that people were still driving on them. So up until the late 50s, early 60s, they were still dirt roads and people were still using them. So this picture is from the 1950s. Gives us an idea of what this looked like back then.
Would that be where the three-way intersection is now, roughly, still?
Yep.
All right,
Right, that's it. Mm-hmm.
right, so that's the continuation. So there's the three-way, it used to be a four-way.
Yep.
There's the Kings Road.
Yeah.
That's neat.
When you said you were seeing evidence of these old roads, what kind of evidence were you seeing?
It's very subtle, but you'll see a depression or a leveling off. So there may be an area where there's a slope of a dune, and you'll see it level and then continue down. Also, if you go out just off the yellow trail here, just since the friendly unit was burned over the summer, you can actually see, so the old Kings Road actually follows our yellow trail, and then the yellow trail diverges kind of to the right. And if you were to continue straight towards Route 155, you can actually see where the lay of the land is like this, and then it dips down, and then it forms this kind of lower level area. And it's kind of interesting, I just noticed over the summer that, I don't know if it's from the compaction, but the scrub oak only grows in the middle, and the two tracks still continue not to seem to support scrub oak there, is what I could notice from going out and exploring. And there you'll see, you might notice things along the old roads. There's some old tavern sites out in the preserve. There's an area on the Kings Road where there's a pile of round stones, which is unusual to find in the pine bush. So there's all these little pieces that, with the help of local historians, we kind of piece it together. Yes?
The agency discovery thing is really interesting. I assume you're able to track usage of that.
Yes.
And have you seen people starting to engage with it? How
Starting.
new is it?
We had it at Lupin Fest. We've had it going for just about a year.
Okay.
So it's a little bit slow. We're trying to promote more use of it. So we have advertising for it at the kiosk. Right now it's just the blue loop here. So, but there may be potential to expand that in the future. But we've also created some programs where we actually lead kids in doing it. So trying to encourage them, and then continuing to create new challenges so that people will come back and try it again in the future. So it's just starting to take off. A little slow start.
Any questions for her? No?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of things I forgot to mention. We have new pins that are in the gift shop, so you're all welcome to a pin. Take two if you like. Jackie just reminded me, Jackie Citroniti is our lead educator. She did a CPR, first aid workshop. She's our lead for that. She's doing another adult pediatric CPR first aid AED training Saturday the 28th this month from 9 to 3. And we have openings. How many openings do we have? 7. All right. So if anybody on the board or if somebody from your staff might be interested, let us know. You can contact me or you can contact Jack. There's no charge at all.
I'm sorry, when was that?
September 28th, Saturday the 28th from 9 to 3 in here in this room. We have all the stuff. We have the scary dummies. All that stuff. That's it. Wow. I underestimated that one. No one argues when meetings run short, right? Record time.
So, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Dave, second. Nancy, all in favor?
I want to sleep. You know it's a pound drone, that's why. Yeah. 91919.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, pound drone.
Oh, you're right.
See? Yeah, I get multiple ones this year, or this month.
By the way, if you're gonna have that up, I don't need to.
I know, that works okay.